When I joined the firm very early on in 1983, by that time we had grown to 125 people and we were a single office. But even within that single office, we had what I would consider to be multiple cultures and aspirations for our future. And one of the reasons I joined the firm was to help grow the firm into a national and eventually international firm. So it was clear that even then, back in 1983, that in order for us to become a more significant firm in our industry, that we were going to have to look at how do we identify ourselves together as a single firm, and we were far from it, even at that time when we were one office. And of course, the roots of Cannon Design go all the way back to 1916, and Will Cannon Sr. started the firm, but when I joined the firm in 1983, as I mentioned, we were up to 125 people. And I think when we first started, we needed to develop a common identity. I mentioned earlier that we started with a single office and had multiple identities within a single office. By the time we got to the late 1980s, we had acquired several other offices, and we had 4 offices. And at that point, as we had developed a business model that was really referred to as a family of companies after the Smith Group, if you may recall how they referred to themselves as a family of companies. And we actually had separate identities. Each office had its own firm name, and we were called the Cannon Corporation. We knew if we were going to become an international leader that we needed to have a common identity. So it really started with developing a common identity. We even had to do away with multiple payrolls. We had to begin to educate our people. So there was a lot of training involved. And there were still many obstacles. We didn't yet have a common purpose, values, or aspirations. I used to ask myself, and I'm sure many others did in the firm, why do we exist as a firm? What drives us? Why do we get up in the morning to go to work? Why Cannon Design? We needed a stronger foundation than we had. So those were the early steps we took. So it started with reading a book, and then I realized that we needed to get somebody outside the firm to help us. What we wanted to do was engage all of the principals in the firm. At that time, we had 23. So the first thing we had him do was to interview all 23 principals. I wanted to understand what their aspirations were. I wanted to understand what they thought Cannon Design should become in the future, what their issues were, what their values were, and so that process took probably about 3 to 4 months just to go and meet with each of the principals and get their input. Well, even before we went around the offices and talked with them, we had to get all the principals on the same page. And so what we did was had a 3.5-day session in which we had hoped that we would be able to develop this vision together. And after 3.5 days, we realized that we were only halfway there. And so we scheduled another 3.5-day another 3.5-day meeting. And at the conclusion of those 2 meetings, we ended up having a 1-page vision statement that at the conclusion of that, we said to each other that all of us needed to adapt to whatever our behavior needed to adapt to do those core values and drive that purpose forward. So that my biggest concern initially was getting all the principals on the same page, and because they needed to walk out of that room with a united voice about who we are going to be as a firm going forward. Well, even at the principal level, when we were done with the 2 3.5-day sessions, I knew that there were 2 to maybe 3 principals that weren't really buying into it, and that proved to be the case. And within the next 6 months, they either left or we asked them to leave. But then I went on the road to every single office and began to talk with the officers separately, and then the staff separately, and then together. And what I wanted to do was get a perception from the officers in terms of how they felt about this vision that had been developed by the principals of the firm. And then I wanted to talk separately with the staff to find out how they felt about it and whether there was an alignment in terms of what the staff felt and what the officers felt. And there, in fact, was not an alignment. And so from that, we developed a number of initiatives which we were able to work on over the next year or so that began to bring people more in alignment. But we did find, Donna, that there were people who felt that our vision, our new vision, wasn't necessarily appropriate for them. And a few people left, but the vast majority of the people got exceptionally excited about it, and it became the driving force within the firm. Probably the most important measurable result is the improvement in our business growth. We grew from the time we adopted our vision until today. We grew at an average rate of about 10 to 12% a year at the top line. And I believe that our vision has been the most important business strategy that we have ever employed. And of course, there were many other positives. Before we had the vision, at times it even became difficult for us to communicate effectively with each other because people would have different agendas. Once we had the vision in place, then everybody understood that that was the only agenda within the firm. Everybody rallied around it, and everybody worked together, and it became easy to work together across the firm, even though we might be separated by 1,000 or 10,000 miles, and even though people may not know each other, they connected because we had a common purpose, a common vision. Well, I think the first thing that people, when they put together a vision statement, need to realize is it's not something you put together and put in a drawer and forget about it. In fact, Harvard did a study a number of years ago that said that most firms probably shouldn't even develop a vision unless they're going to really, really take it seriously, because what happens, what they found was a lot of firms develop a vision, a purpose, and then they never talk about it, and it doesn't become reality, and people begin to become disenchanted with, I thought this was going to be what we were all about, but it doesn't appear to be the case. So it is something you have to continue to work on forever. Within Canon Design, our senior officers, starting with me, do not dictate the future of the firm. Our vision and our purpose drives the future of our firm. And I see my role and other senior leaders in our firm, their role really to make the vision and purpose reality. And that's our primary responsibility, is to drive that and make it real. If you're going to do it, put your whole heart and soul into it. Involve as many people as you possibly can. And then, as you said, walk the talk. Make it real. Live it every day. Live the vision. Live your purpose. And integrate it into everything you do as a firm. Whether it has to do with recruiting, whether it has to do with career development, whether it has to do with your business plans, whether it has to do with almost anything you could think of in the firm. We include it in everything, and it's the only way really that you can keep it alive. And if you do keep it alive, it does unite your people together around a common vision, common culture, and common goals. And in today's world, as you know, Donna, probably better than I do, with the multi-generations that we have to deal with as firms, trying to keep everybody on the same page and keep them engaged in what the firm is trying to accomplish is really, really important. I don't know if I already said this, but if I didn't, I think it's probably the single most important thing that certainly I've done at Canada Design is to help put a vision in place that guides the future development of our firm, the behavior of our people, and it has been again our most important business strategy. So yes, I would say, however, again though, caution that if an organization is going to put a purpose-driven philosophy in place, that the senior leaders need to subject themselves to it as opposed to using the vision to their own agenda. In other words, what I'm saying, and it's one of the reasons, by the way, we have in one of our core values, which is honesty, integrity, fairness, and the word humility is added there, as well as courage to do the right thing all the time, is that we have to humble ourselves to what we're trying to accomplish as a group of people, as a team of people, as opposed to each individual looking out for their own best interest.
I thank you so much for sharing this story. I just want to leave you with one thought that I have, and that is the most important thing is that we take care not of our clients, but of our employees. If we take care of our employees, then in turn, our customers and clients will be taken care of as well. And that's what purpose is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.